What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we're in the home stretch now for the Switch 2 since it does release next week. And wouldn't you know it, we're already starting to see them pop up in stores. In fact, people have been able to take pictures of them. They're just kind of out and about for everyone to see. And that, of course, has led to all kinds of questions around what happens if one of these systems sprouts legs and walks off. We'll go over that, as well as some projections that could show this being the biggest launch for a console in history in certain regions. Then we also have Sony with their Days of Play sale that's set to start up here any day, as we have just about all the discounts now that have been confirmed through leaks. And there is a new Battlefield game that's currently in testing. Well, now we're getting some details that are sort of trickling out, and you know what? This is looking like the game that people were really hoping that Battlefield 2042 was going to be. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or the link in the description down below. And we're gonna start today with Fantasy Life I, as we did get an update when it comes to the sales, which the game came out last week and people were pretty excited. I've been seeing some of you in the comments mention this game. Hey, don't forget about Fantasy Life I, and I've been keeping an eye on it, but I don't really think it's my kind of game necessarily. Still, though, looks like a lot of people are having fun, as the Steam concurrent player count that people love to hone in on is doing pretty well for it. And we can see this posted up. This is over on the Fantasy Life website, saying Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time, 500,000 copies sold worldwide. Level 5, it seems like it's working out for him here. That, of course, being on the Switch, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series XS, and Steam. And there is a Switch 2 patch or upgrade that's coming down the line here as well for Nintendo's next generation system. So, I mean, within 2 days of launch, they say here, 500,000 copies sold. And we've talked about expectations when it comes to sales. It seems like Level 5 is very happy with what they're seeing. There's even free updates and stuff now coming down the line. So hey, for Fantasy Life I fans out there, people are enjoying it. Seems like you have plenty to look forward to as the sales continue to stack up. Also, it looks like we have some physical copies coming for Hellblade 2 and technically even Hellblade 1, which we can see this over on VGC. They say now following Hellblade 2's PS5 announcement last week, ratings board ESRB has listed a version of Senua Saga with physical games firm Limited Run Games as publisher, with PS5 and Xbox Series listed as formats. It also mentions a second ESRB listing that points to Limited Run planning a physical version of the original Hellblade game for Nintendo Switch. So good news there. I mean, it's Limited Run, right? So you get that order in, you'll have it ready to roll for the PlayStation 6 launch. I know people see Limited Run and they just assume it's going to be a while before it shows up. But this, I guess being one that's partnered then with Microsoft, it's still weird to me when I see that. It's like Microsoft partners that, they couldn't just release the physical copy. Although Microsoft isn't exactly excited, it feels like, about physical copies anyway, where it seems like they'll kind of bypass them unless maybe they're approached with a partnership like this from Limited Run Games. So there you go. I guess people who wanted a physical copy, especially maybe for the PS5 coming up here soon, you'll be able to get it from Limited Run Games. And here's hoping it gets to you before next generation starts. Oh, and we had a very interesting spike when it comes to concurrent player counts with Star Wars Battlefront 2. Look, you can take a look for yourself here over on SteamDB with a pretty big jump, looks like about a week ago or so, and people were trying to figure out why exactly this happened, because you remember Battlefront 2 got crushed when it came out way back when, with the loot boxes being tied to gameplay elements in the game, and that's where I remember the surprise mechanics and stuff came from. A lot of great sound bites from EA in that time period. But some are linking it, I guess, to Andor Season 2. It seemed to be a very good run for that season and may have sparked some interest in Battlefront 2. I haven't seen the new Andor season. I guess I'll have to tune in and maybe just binge watch that and see if it really is living up to the hype. But hey, if it's able to revive Battlefront 2 to this degree after what it went through at launch and how it just kind of sputtered out there for a long time, it must be a pretty good watch. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Nintendo Switch 2. Again, it is launching next week, technically June 5th, but I'm sure many people out there will attempt to get it at midnight, depending on your location and the retailer you got it from. So I'll be trying to get it at midnight, I guess, at Best Buy. We'll see how all of that goes. It's been a while since there's been a big midnight release for a new console. But anyway, it does appear that these systems are showing up at retail. And in fact, in some cases, they're just out and about in the electronics section, and in others, they're being photographed when they probably shouldn't be. So let's take a look. We'll start here. This from Jake Randall, showing what looks like a cage on wheels of a bunch of Switch 2 systems. That's right. Now, they are locked up, but it's also in a cage with wheels, so people are like, hold on a minute, what if somebody just grabbed that and started running off with it? I mean, look, you're probably, I assume, going to get caught, but either way, it's funny how it's just kind of out there, whereas people have been kind of building up to this as a mythical device almost. Throw it in the cage with wheels, and we'll get to it eventually. Now, another instance had a person taking a picture and then uploading it to Reddit, and then they had to take it down. Why? Because there's identifiable information on the side of the box, so I won't be showing you that, but I will tell you this. If you are at your job and it's in retail and Switch systems come through, I'd recommend not taking pictures of them and posting them online, because that tends to be a fireable offense in some cases, okay? So I remember back in the day when I worked at GameStop, way back in the Stone Age, it feels like now, when even a game that was high profile came in, we had to stack them in the back and then cover it with a tarp. It was that big of a deal. So now take that and kind of think about it in terms of, okay, a big console generation like this from Nintendo, who's also very strict and at times over the top when it comes to protecting their IPs and even hardware. Yeah, I wouldn't chance any of that, but I mean, you're starting to see these systems that are obviously street data. You're not going to go there and the cashier won't be able to ring it up. It'll come up and say, not for sale at this time until this date. But they're starting to show up, and it's somewhat large quantities, kind of as you'd expect, just based on the online sales at retail. At GameStop, we saw some of the listings there of 60 or 70 for some stores. So some are mentioning that these different targets are getting shipments of like 40 at a time. So hopefully that means there will be plenty of stock, because now we're starting to see some projections that are more than 1 million in some cases. So take a look. This is posted up over on Nintendo Soup. It says Nintendo Switch Day 1 shipment in Japan estimated to be over 1.2 million units. Now, I want to point out, they have this from consolidated survey results of the first 2 My Nintendo Store Switch 2 pre-order lotteries, as well as them just sort of extrapolating out from there with different Japanese retailers. So this isn't, I think, a number I would necessarily lock in as, oh yeah, this is absolutely happening. But let's say they're off by a couple 100,000 units, okay? Even if this thing was 800,000 units in Japan when it launches, that would still be the biggest launch we've ever seen for a game console in history in that region. I think the last one that I guess is the top there would be the PS2. That was a bit over 600,000 units at launch. The Switch back in March of 2017, that was a bit over 300,000 units. So, I mean, that would be a massive jump from there, 3 to 4 times that amount, let's say, if it does touch 1.2 million units. But it really just shows the overall demand of the system right now heading into its launch week, and that shouldn't surprise anyone. We're coming off of a generation where Nintendo was able to sell more than 150 million Switch 1 systems. Take just 10% of that install base who's really excited for the system and desperately wants to get it. That's 15 million people at launch looking to get it, and Nintendo can't produce enough anyway. So yeah, go figure, the Switch 2 gonna sell out at launch. Based on the direct that we assume they're gonna have in June based on recent reports, could even work to drive demand higher as they go through that first year, and maybe they can get to a number of 20 million systems by next year, like very quickly, which that's Nintendo's strategy right now. Get as many Switch 2 systems out there in the hands of customers so they can, of course, continue to sell software at a huge rate. Next up, let's talk about Sony and their Days of Play sale that is starting tomorrow, actually, May 28th. And, you know, I was looking over some of the sales that have now leaked out from Insider Gaming, and nothing to me in terms of the hardware is really over the top, except for the fact that it's technically discounted at a time where we're seeing game prices and hardware prices go up. So I guess in some case, even by kind of standing still and taking a slight step backwards, it's pretty big. And this technically comes with the game too. So let's take a look at some of the numbers here over on Insider Gaming. Again, this does start May 28th. And I picked out a few games here. So Sackboy: A Big Adventure would be $20. Returnal is coming in at $30. Gran Turismo 7 at $30. Neo Collection, that's a good one. Like to pick up these collections on discount because getting multiple games at a lower price here then. That's $20. Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection at $20. Rise of the Ronin is $40. Helldivers 2, $30. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart at 30. And I also want to point out that these Days of Play sales, you'd order not only on PlayStation's storefront there, but also at different retailers. So typically you'll see Amazon, for example, also adopt some of these discounts, and these would then apply to just physical copies of these games. So like to point it out when you can kind of add to the shelf space there with just more for the collection physically. Moving up to some of the hardware and accessories. Okay, PSVR 2 is $350. I don't think that's a very good sale for the PSVR 2, which maybe at this point Sony's like, whatever. Whatever we sell, and that's kind of it. But I mean, there you go. Technically, it is discounted like $50. Call of Duty Black Ops 6. It's a PS5 bundle, so you do get the game. $450 for the disc-based unit, $400 for the digital unit. Now, the $400 digital, that's what it started at back when the system first came out in 2020. But it does also come with Black Ops 6. So yes, there you go. You're getting a game with it, which also works to add more value to that bundle. $450 though for a disc-based PS5 Slim at this time. That's not bad. Again, we're seeing prices go up. We're in the world right now of a $700+ Xbox right now. And then on the other side, the PS5 Pro looks to be discounted about $50, that being down to $650. Still very expensive, but again, there's a $700 Xbox Series on the other side of that. The DualSense Edge controller is down to $170. The DualSense controller itself, the base one, starts at $55 and can go up $5 or $10 depending on what kind of color scheme or edition you want of it. And at this time, we think PlayStation Plus memberships will be 30% off. This is according to D-Lab's report, but that could be region specific. We'll see more with that when this is all officially announced, which I assume is going to be tomorrow. But I figure we'll see a 30% discount across the board just about for PlayStation Plus memberships, as that's what they tend to do most years anyway. So not bad. I mean, look, if you want a PlayStation 5 system, not a bad bundle to get, because right now we're unsure what exactly is going to happen with the pricing in general. So here in a few months, $450 for a disc-based unit with Call of Duty might look downright cheap. Next up, let's talk about Battlefield that's currently in playtests right now. And we have seen just leaked footage that was posted up on YouTube and then was pulled down. It was like 90 minutes as someone was just streaming it on their PlayStation 5. But alongside of that, we've been getting more and more details from the console side of things here. And we can see this is posted up over on MP First. Also leave a link to this down below in the sources, as well as with everything else for these different stories that I do here, if you want to maybe look into this a bit more for yourself, because there are a lot of details here when it comes to different classes, sort of the weapons, movement, everything. But there are a few key details I wanted to go over, so we can see this over on their website, where it says the controller and technical 60 FPS frame rate is confirmed through performance mode. So there are different modes, it looks like, for it. Again, this is through like the Battlefield Labs client that they have set up for this test. But then I guess maybe there'd be a 120 mode. I'm not sure, because I will say some of the footage looks pretty ridiculous in terms of the destruction of the environment. No tactical sprint option, no option to gyro aim. DualSense trigger support is said to be good, quote unquote. Rotational aim assist and aim slowdown are in the client, but they're very weak. So it's not like COD, where if you play Call of Duty, you know how that aim assist will just grab. It's like a magnet to the enemy when it comes to your cursor. This is not going to be as strong. So I actually don't mind that. I think that could be good. It adds more to that tactical experience, I guess, with it, almost simulation style. Mouse and keyboard are supported on the PlayStation 5. However, one person did say it's bugged and only one is working. You know, I will say this. With a lot of these first-person shooters on console, it always slips my mind that I could use a keyboard and mouse, and a lot of that's because you might be sitting on the couch or something, and mouse and keyboard is mostly, I feel like, best for a desk setup. So when I would play this on PC, it's like, yeah, obviously keyboard and mouse. But when I go play it on a PlayStation or an Xbox or something, it's like, let's go ahead and pick up the controller. Again, there's a lot of details there when it comes to gameplay and the classes. So I will leave that all linked down below if you can read through it a bit more. But based on the footage that I've seen so far, especially the destruction side of things, which is still what I think about when Battlefield comes up in conversation. It's like, remember back in the day when you would just destroy buildings, you'd blow holes in walls if somebody's camping on the other side, or you would just have the entire building fall down on them. I was seeing some of that in the footage here. So that, and the fact that it looked a bit more grounded and realistic here, and then hearing about how we're not necessarily having aim assist pull the reticule all over the place for a more arcadey experience like Call of Duty. I am very interested in this Battlefield game when they're ready to launch it. And the fact they've been doing playtests for so long, hopefully it comes out as a balanced and polished experience with significantly more content, I'll say, than Battlefield 2042, because that launch really hurt that game. And it seems like DICE and EA realize that, and they're kind of taking their time here with the build up for this game. But they said they're trying to get it out by the end of this fiscal year. So we should see it at the very least. I feel like maybe like Q1 calendar in 2026. So we'll keep an eye out for that announcement. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the day one update for the Switch 2. As we've already gone over, the system itself, the retail boxes, everything are showing up at stores. So some dummy units for the boxes they put out for advertising are being looked over, and people are taking pictures, of course, realizing, oh, it mentions here that you need a day one update for a pretty important feature, which you can see this posted up. This is over on Go Nintendo, saying according to the side of the Switch 2 box, users will need to update their Switch 2 in order to use micro SD Express cards, that of course being the newer micro SD format for faster transfer and read speeds, the whole thing there. And this seemed to confuse some people immediately with this, but back when the Switch came out, like, you needed to do an update to use like the newer SD card format then as well. So this is just the same thing. For the most part, you're going to update your system anyway day one, unless you're somebody who's really into the mod scene. But even then, you would most likely update it so you can transfer stuff back and forth with the SD card. So this to me just seems pretty straightforward and almost expected at this point, as we hear that there was kind of a sizable day one update anyway. A lot of this kind of functionality at times will just be pushed after the system, I'll say, is shipped out. And it kind of has I'll say a dummy firmware, but a very, very basic firmware that's waiting for that update to install added functionality. So yeah, you will have to do an update when you get the system for not only micro SD Express card support, but probably a few other things. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, are you picking up Elden Ring Night Rain? Okay, 10% say they're getting it ASAP, 30% maybe if there's a sale later on, and then 61% just say, no, I'm not interested. I did see some mention, it's online, it's kind of like multiplayer driven, although they do have they have a single player mode through the whole thing as well. I'm not sure how that's going to work out. I haven't really seen as much excitement around Elden Ring Night Rain as I kind of figured I would. I mean, it's Elden Ring game basically, right? Coming off of the massive release for FromSoft and Bandai with that one. And it's to the point where people still play that game constantly. But for some reason, maybe it is the multiplayer aspect. Maybe it's because they did change quite a bit of it when it comes to the gameplay loop and simplified larger portions of it so that it is more of a speed run exercise on the multiplayer side, that it's not necessarily clicking for everyone who's really into Elden Ring. I'm not sure, but I guess we'll find out here soon because, well, it's out in a couple of days, so I figure reviews should be going live here at any time. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Mighty Link, who says, shocker, the audit found more plagiarism in Marathon. Turns out it wasn't just one texture sheet after all. Now they have to delay the game to basically redo all the textures. Look, that could be part of it. I figure it's not like a snap your finger and everything is removed from the game in terms of the assets that were lifted. Probably a bit more work than that, but then also, now you have to comb through the entirety of the game, I figure, and just check to see if there's anything else that was lifted. I know they said it was one rogue employee from years ago or something. How many people believe that narrative around it? I don't know. It's like one employee did all of this, really? And they managed to slip it past all the supervisors, and people would have to have final say on any of the artwork they're submitting. Something to me with that just doesn't really check out. So either just the overall process at Bungie is very, very poor in terms of art and putting all this stuff together, or it really was one genius rogue employee who thought, you know what, wow, years from now, they're gonna remember me because I'm gonna put this lost meme from this person's art profile in, and they'll get a great laugh out of it. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here on a card, or maybe hear more about this game called Mind's Eye that's out in a couple of weeks, but it certainly doesn't feel like it should be out in a couple of weeks. I'll leave that right below it. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.